He does nothing but cry.
Are they keeping him in?
Well, they wouldn't let me stay. They said I seem to make matters worse.
I shouldn't have taken him to the hospital. I don't know what came over me. I should have brought him back here where he belongs.
Well, why is his coat on the floor? And his hat?
Fine out. They're wet through sudden, if you don't mind my saying so. So was he, drenched, sweat and drizzle.
Well, how did he come to be in such a state, Norman? Oh, when you telephoned, I thought at first he'd had an accident or in the air raid
No,
or had an accident.
no, not an accident.
No, I know because they said there was no physical sign of injury.
I know.
He's in a state of collapse.
Oh, your ladyship, I know.
Well, how did he get like that?
Your ladyship.
God, what happened to him?
Sit down, please. Please sit down. We have to remain calm, not to say clear-headed,
The doctor said it must have been coming on for weeks.
if not longer.
Well, I didn't see him this morning. He left the digs before I even woke up. Where was he all day? And where did you find him?
What happened was this, your ladyship. After the last all clear sounded, I went into Market Square as dusk was coming on, a peculiar light, ever so yellowish, smoke and dust rising from the bomb craters, running shadows, full of the unexpected. I had hoped to find a packet or two of Brown and Paulson's cornflour, since our supplies are rather low and the stuff's scarce and you never know. So I was asking at his stall, and that when I heard his voice.
Whose voice?
Theirs, of course. I turned and saw him by the candle maker who was shutting up shop for the night. He was lit by one tall tallow candle which was guttering, and he looked like that painting of him as Lear, all greens and dark blues seen through this peculiar light. He was taking off his overcoat in this weather. God help the man who stops me, shouted, and threw the coat to the ground, just like Lear in the storm scene. Look at it. I don't know if I'll ever get it clean. And he was so proud of it. You remember, perhaps it was before your time, the first Canadian tour, Toronto, raglan sleeves, fur collar, and now look at it.
What happened after he took off the coat?
Started on the head, Dunes Piccadilly, only a year ago. Down on the coat it went, and he jumped on it. Stamped on his head, viciously stamped on his head. You can see he lifted both hands as he does to convey servility. Into Goneril's woman called out, "How much further do you want me to go?" His fingers were all of a fidget, undoing his jacket, loosening his collar and tie, tearing at the buttons of his shirt.
Were there many people about?
Small crowd. That's why I ran to him. I didn't want him to stand there looking ridiculous with people all around sniggering.
Well, did he see you? Did he know who you were?
Didn't wait to find out. I just took his hand and said, "Good evening, sir. Shouldn't we be getting to the theater?" In my best nanny voice, the one I use when he's being wayward. He paid no attention. He was shivering. His whole body seemed to be trembling, and such a trembling.
Well, you shouldn't have let the public see him like that.
It's easy to be wise after the event, if you don't mind my saying so, your ladyship. But I tried to spirit him away. Not easy with a man of his proportions. Only just then a woman approached, quite old, wearing bombazine under a tweed coat, but perfectly respectable. She picked up his clothes and wanted to help him dress. I just stood there amazed, utterly amazed. He said to the woman, "Thank you, my dear, but Norman usually looks after me. I'd be lost without Norman." So I thought to myself, "This is your cute ducky," and said, "I'm Norman. I'm his dresser." The woman, she had her hair in curlers, took his hand and kissed it, saying, "You were lovely in the Corsican Brothers." He looked at her a long while, smiled sweetly, you know, the way he does when he wants charm, and said, "Thank you, my dear, but you must excuse me. I have to make an exit," and ran off.
He said I have to make an exit.
Well, of course, I went after him, fearing the worst. I didn't know he could run so fast. I just followed a trail of discarded clothing, jacket, waistcoat, and thought, we can't have sir doing a striptease round town. But then I found him, leaning up against a lamppost, weeping,
Where?
outside the Cordoma, without a word, hardly knowing what I was doing. I led him to the hospital. The sister didn't recognize him, although later she said she'd seen him as Othello last night. A doctor was summoned, short, bald, bespectacled, and I was excluded by the drawing of screens.
And that's when you telephoned me.
No, I waited. I lurked, as Edmund says, and heard the doctor whisper, "This man is exhausted. This man is in a state of collapse." Then the sister came out and said, "I must fetch you at once." That's when I telephoned, and that's how it happened.
He did nothing but cry.
Yes, you said.
I left him lying on top of the bed, still in his clothes, crying, no, weeping, as though he had lost all control and had no choice. Wept and wept. Floodgates. What are we to do? In just over an hour, there's going to be an audience in that theater expecting to see him as King Lear. What am I to do?
Don't upset yourself for a start.
Never had to make a decision like this before. I've never had to make any decision. As soon as I came out of the hospital, I telephoned Madge and I asked her to meet me here as soon as possible. She'll know what to do.
Oh, yes, Madge will know what to do. She won't upset herself, that's for certain. Madge will be ever so sensible, of course. Stage managers have to be. I had a friend once. He had been a vicar before falling from the pulpit and landing on the stage, ever so good as an ugly sister. To the manner born, his wife didn't upset easily. Just as well, I suppose, all things considered, Madge reminds me of her. Cold, businesslike, boring,
The doctor took me into a little room filled with enamel dishes, littered with bloody bandages. He apologized. He said they'd been busy after the air raid. The smell made me sick. He asked me about his behavior in the recent days. If I had noticed anything untoward. I smiled involuntarily. Untoward? What an odd word to use.
What did you say, if you don't mind my asking?
I lied. I didn't want to appear negligent. I said he'd been perfectly normal. I should have been more vigilant. Only last night I woke and is that Madge?
No, Irene.
What are we going to do?